With its striking black sail, the trading wherry is an iconic sight of the Norfolk Broads. Once commonplace on the waterways of Norfolk, the wherry would have been used to carry heavy loads to and from the bustling port of Great Yarmouth and upstream to places like Horning, Wroxham and the small Broadland villages that each had their own staiths, and of course to the city of Norwich, in an age before motorised road transport and railways. Built in 1899 at Reedham, Maude belonged to a director of Jewson timber merchants as part of his small private fleet. Maude's original purpose was to transport imported timber up the River Yare to the sawmills at Norwich. However, as the means of transporting goods across Norfolk changed during the early 20th century in favour of road and rail transport, Maude was later used to carry mud dredgings before finally being retired in the 1960s, with a bleak future of being sunk indefinitely, as these large ageing vessels often were, their sturdy hulls being used to reinforce eroding riverbanks. Luckily, Maude's fate was to change, as less than 20 years later, Linda Pargeter and husband Vincent embarked on a painstaking 18-year restoration project to bring Maude back to her former glory. She sailed as a privately owned vessel until it was decided to secure her future by forming the Wherry Maude Trust in 2015, ensuring her story lives on for future generations. Today, Maude's cargo tends to be of the human variety, offering a unique Broads experience aboard this wind-powered giant. So what is life like aboard Maude? Taking the helm is trustee Neil Thomas, who gives us an insight into the workings of the wherry and life on the waterways of Norfolk.
So we've been out sailing for the day, we've had reasonable winds and we've needed a reef in. We've tied up for the night and we need to drop that reef out because the winds have gone light, and then we're going to look at lacing the bonnet on to give us some extra sail capacity to sail in very light winds. So first off, we're going to take the reef out of the sail. So we've taken the reef out of the sail and now we're going to lay the bonnet out. When we've got full sail, it's natural sail, we've got about 1,200 square feet of sail area. When we've got very light winds, we can lace a bonnet onto the bottom of the sail, which will give us another 150-200 square feet. The gaff goes far higher up the mast, so in treed areas we can pick up more wind higher up as well. So having threaded all the loops of the bonnet onto the main sail, we just simply lace it all the way to the front. And if you look at the sail picture, you can see when the bonnet's on, because you can see this line of string. So having let our reef out and we've put our bonnet on, we need to reset the chain. So if Adrian will let the block down to me, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So each ring on this chain, take them all off. Full sail, one reef, which is the one we've just taken out. If we had 2 reefs or 3 reefs, we've got two further to add. Adding the bonnet, we can now put this little length of the chain there into play, and that will keep the sail maintained at the right angle. So we've reached our destination for the day and we need to put the wherry to bed for the night. So firstly we have to disconnect the blocks colleague will then pull it in tight for the night. And then we need to furl the sail, so I need to pull all the sail out on deck. There's quite a lot of it. Flake it, so we put ripples in, so when it's got its sail ties on, the top layer sheds the water and it doesn't gather water if it rains at night because there's no cover on the sail. So having put the sail to bed, we got some cargo to unload. So the first operation is we've got to remove the gaff off the mast so we can use the mast as a crane effectively. So first job is to now release and get the gaff off, which is quite heavy work. So I've attached the one end of the gaff line that pulls the gaff up to the back down to the boat again. So we're slowly disconnecting the gaff effectively. If I took this pulley off block and mounted it on that one, that's for nighttime storage because we can take the tension on the middle of the gaff, which just takes the sag out of it and keeps it straight. When we want to do any lifting, we then bring that block and attach to this one and then disconnect from the gaff, and then we can use the mast, as you will see shortly in our next operation. So I'm now going to change the blocks. Now disconnect the gaff completely. Wind all you like, it's not going anywhere. And that's now free. But obviously left hanging. So my trusty crew member will now lower the winch, and having raked the mast back to this angle, which you can do, you can pick up a load, a heavy load, anywhere within the hold. Thank you, Adrian. Okay. What we can do is lift any weight from any position within the hold. The crane block, which is at the top of the mast, is now doing what its name says. It's being a crane. We're lifting. What you can't do is sideways lift with it. So what we do is we lift it clear of the hold, and then we physically have to pull it off the boat, or on the boat if we were loading. Okay, Adrian, if we can have it down, please. It'll look heavy. Whoop.
Aside from doubling up as a crane, the mast can be fully lowered. The mast lowering system is designed to be as simple and efficient as possible in order to pass under the many bridges traversing the waterways.
So we're preparing to lower the mast this time, so the first thing we need to do is to open up the forepeak hatch. For the mast to come down, we've got to clear the decks of everything so that the mast is free to not be hindered in any way in its up or down. We've then got to open the winch. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the gate. That's the safety lock that if anything happened to the forestay rope, the mast can't come hurtling down. We're now safe. I'll cruise out of the forepeak. We can release the forestay rope. It's beautifully balanced. About a ton and a half of lead on the end of that.
With the rigging tied up for the night, Neil gives us a virtual tour of the wherry, starting with the hold.
So I'm stood in the hold now, built to carry 40 tonnes. We can see the headroom is not great. On the voyage the hatches would be shut and you wouldn't be able to get in here because the hold itself will be absolutely loaded. The hold is lined with timber and then lifting this, the inspection cover, we can actually see the makings of the wherry. We've got the ribs, we've got the hog down the middle, and then we've got the oak planking, and the other side of that is the water. Maude was built to carry 40 tonnes, but you ask, how do we know when you've got 40 tonnes on board? If you look down her lines, down the plank shear, this white board, you've got a lovely sweeping arch, and where I'm stood here is the low point. And when that is in the water, you've got 40 tonnes on board, and that's how they knew when they were basically loaded. Now Maude was built to carry timber from Yarmouth up to Norwich to the juice and sawmills. Unusually for this size of wherry, our tabernacle has been built higher because timber doesn't weigh as much as coal or gravel or anything else that they might have carried does. So what they did was they filled the hold with timber, but they still didn't have that weight on board. So they used to take the hatches off and they used to board it out, and the timber sticks out right out into the river, but it still allowed them to be loaded higher than the hold and still be able to sail. So here we are at the end of the day. I've sailed my 40-ton wherry through the waterways of Norfolk. But what's next? Well, I need to sleep, I need to eat. So down in here, in the cuddy, we have a little cabin, and that is where we lived. So to enable us to cook in the cuddy, we need to have a chimney so we can light that fire. Obviously when we're sailing we can't have a chimney because the sail or the blocks would sweep it off. So the last thing before we light the fire is to put our chimney in place, and then we can cook, eat and get ready for bed. Oh, that were a lovely stew, that was.
And that concludes our virtual tour of this historic trading vessel. If you wish to experience a trip on Maude for yourself, become a member of the Wherry Maude Trust today. The Trust is always keen to recruit new members and volunteers to help in all aspects of Maude's operation and maintenance. Be a part of this unique piece of Broad's history. Visit the website for more details.